Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Hawes from Washington Christian Academy. I am the Director of Operations, and again, this is a seminar we're presenting particularly for middle school students and their parents on how to chart a course to college. What are some of the things to start thinking about now, and then to give you an overview of the course that lies ahead. Joining me is our Director of College Guidance, Jan Adams, and she's going to take over in a few minutes, but I've got just a couple of preliminary things I'd like to go over. First, I know some of you are familiar with and are parents at WCA, but I wanted to talk a little bit about WCA, just give you a brief 1 or 2 minute background on it. The rest of our agenda, as you can see, we have something here at Washington Christian Academy we call the 5 I's. So Jan is going to be talking about that and their importance in preparing students for college. We're going to look at middle school and then grade by grade, 9th through 12th in the high school, the specific things to be thinking about and planning for. Jan's going to share a little bit about advanced placement classes. We get lots of questions about those here at the school. Then finally, as you are toward the end of your junior year and into your senior year, how do you choose colleges to go to, and a little bit about the application process. And then finally, again, something we get questions about, the SAT and ACT tests, what are some differences with them? I want to draw your attention before we get the seminar started. We have some polls that we're going to be presenting, throughout the course of this webinar, just to get your thoughts about college and your children. So the first one is related to, the age that you start talking to your students about children. So in the webinar interface, you can see the polls are, and we'd appreciate your participation in that. And if you keep your eye focused there, you'll notice as we go through the webinar today that there are going to be other questions that we present. So we'd appreciate your participation in the poll questions. So now a little bit about Washington Christian Academy. We serve children in grades kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. We are located actually in Olney, Maryland. I say that we kind of intentionally deceive people by putting the name Washington in the title of our school, but we're actually in the Washington, D.C. area, and Olney is north of D.C. We were founded back in 1960, so we've been a school for over 50 years now. And one of the ways we think about the educational experience that we deliver is that it is reverent, adventurous, and academically serious. So we've talked to parents through the years. We know that at times they feel like maybe particularly with private schools or even Christian schools, there might be compromises they have to make in either the Christian environment that they're looking for, or the academics that they're looking for. And one of our expressed purposes, the founders and as the high school was added, really wanted parents not to have to make that compromise. So we say it's reverent and adventurous and academically serious. If you're interested in more information about WCA, you can go to our website or call our school. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jan Adams. As said, she is the Director of College Placement. Jan, why don't you share a little bit about yourself in your college experiences here in your position, and some with your family too.
Thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you parents. And just to let you know a little bit about myself, I have been with Washington Christian Academy well over 20 years. I have 5 adult children who also graduated from our school. And as I tell our parents, I've been through the college experience as guidance and as a parent. So I am in it with you. I know what you're experiencing, and I know what the transition to college means to a family, and certainly to the high school graduate. So in our family, like I said, I have 5 children who are now adults. They have all been to college, and most of them also have graduate degrees at this point. But for undergraduate school, 2 daughters went to the University of Virginia. One daughter went to Columbia University, one son went to the U.S. Naval Academy, and one son went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So we have a variety of college experiences, but also a real variety in our family of how students approach applying to college. And I'll mention that a little bit later as we go along here.
Great, thank you, Jan. Okay, let's jump into talking about the kind of environment and program that's important to when you're thinking about college.
Okay, so certainly as you've mentioned already, a rigorous academic program. Our school has been committed to that. Academics is not a compromise for our parents, and that rigorous academic program at Washington Christian is really a given. We have also introduced the 5 I's. So think of the rigorous academic program as the content of what we learn. The 5 I's, and we'll go into that, the 5 I's is the qualities that we bring, that we want our students to bring to learning. So let's take a look at these 5 I's. First, intellectual curiosity. This is generally reflected by students asking questions. And they're asking questions inside the classroom, outside the classroom. They're asking questions at home. Another way that we really see it demonstrated is with students who have, I like to describe it as their own reading program outside of the required readings for school. These are all ways that we see intellectual curiosity demonstrated. Another one is independence, and this is the student who understands that they can't depend or wait on other students or teachers or parents to do things for them and as regards their learning. So these are students who understand that they have to be self-reliant. Initiative, this is that willingness to take the first step to solve a problem. Interests, we view interests in 2 areas. One, academic discipline. So for example, some students might describe themselves as leaning more to reading and history, or the humanities as we call it, while others might describe themselves as leaning more toward math and science. These interests should become more discrete and apparent as your child gets older. The second area is outside, what we call outside the curriculum interests, and this would be swimming, soccer, basketball, piano, any of these areas that a student will pursue because they're just passionate about the sport or they're passionate about the music, but these are interests that are beyond the school curriculum. Some of them are expressed within the school curriculum. Some of them are expressed solely outside the school curriculum. And then overall, wrapping all of this up is integrity. And there are many definitions for integrity. I like to describe it to our students as what you do when you think no one's watching you. I also will give our older students the example of a computer engineer. Now, a computer engineer has a choice. He or she can use her or his engineering skills to help people. The technology is helpful, or they can make the choice to use those skills to hack, to steal money, to steal information. So overall, with academic rigor and the qualities that we bring, we have to do it all with integrity.
Great, thank you. We see really the combination is that the first chart showed both of those pieces are important. You know, the content,
Absolutely.
But then how you end up dealing with the content.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into kind of the grade by grade, and we're going to start talking about really the middle school years as a whole and what we're trying to accomplish.
Great. The middle school years are vital. I know many, especially as a parent, you see our children change so much in middle school. It's just fascinating to see the change between 6th grade, then to 7th grade, then to 8th grade. These are very clear times that children change, and usually we'll see a big growth spurt, especially sometimes in the boys, we'll see a physical growth spurt. But this is not a time to just tread water. This is a time to be building study skills, study habits, asking questions, and future focus. So just briefly on each of these, study skills is what we actually do when we're studying. So it's how do we approach note-taking? How do we approach organizing our papers? Can we keep up with our papers? And study skills vary from student to student. So the way one student organizes his or her papers might not be the same way as another student. Some students need binders, some students need spiral notebooks, some students need folders. And this is a way you can help your middle schooler at home by helping him or her get organized and on a daily basis review this organization so that they are keeping up with their papers, and so that it becomes a habit. And then let's go into study habits. Another way to think of study habits is work ethic. So what's the approach that we have to our work, okay, where we're actually applying our study skills. So first of all, with study habits, our children should have a regular place that homework is done or studying is done at home, a regular time. It should be done daily. Even if your child, your middle schooler says, I don't have any homework. Well, that's the time to jump in and say, okay, let's look at your agenda. What's coming up? So this habit of planning and looking at future assignments and seeing, okay, I have a paper due in 2 weeks. What can I do now? I can do a little bit of research today on one part of my paper. I recommend for middle school students that you start them out in a public place. And that can be the dining room table, the kitchen table, and it's a place where you can keep an eye on what they're doing, kind of checking in periodically to see how much progress they're making. Definitely no telephone, no TV, nothing distracting, so that your middle schooler develops the habit of working efficiently for the time, and then has time to move on to what might be fun or pleasurable activities. Definitely asking questions. And here in middle school, it's important for your child to ask questions not only at school, but at home. And I know how it is when you get home at the end of the day and parents are trying to wind down and our children are jumping around asking questions. But this is a good time for you to help your child develop a habit of reasoning through. So you don't have to answer all the questions, but you can and should turn the question around to your young person and say, well, what do you think about that? How do you think it happened that way? What do you think were the decisions that were made along the way? Or what's important about this? Or why is this not important? Just to give them the experience of articulating their ideas in a comfortable environment at home. And at this point, it's really great if we're just listening. And now obviously we might have to jump in and give some correction to the thought, but create the environment where they are willing, your children are willing to ask you questions. And then of course, encouraging your child to ask questions at school, in the classroom and out of the classroom. A child might feel a bit intimidating if he or she thinks, I didn't understand that, but you can encourage your child to go directly to the teacher and ask a question after class. Another thing is right here, future focus. Middle schoolers really need to understand that they're not in middle school forever. It might seem that way. I especially encourage our 8th graders to come to the college fair. And that gives them the opportunity to talk to college representatives, to learn about colleges. Almost every year when the 8th graders come to the fair, several of them come up to me in the days afterward and say, I didn't know about that college. One student came up and said, actually, he wrote me a note and was so sweet. He said, I never knew that there was such a thing as Christian colleges. So this gives our middle schoolers a sense of the future, a sense that they have a place for learning after they leave high school, because at high school, they're going to have to hit the ground running.
Great. All right. Well, we've survived the middle school years.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to enter high school and start with the 9th grade. I also forgot to mention at the beginning, if you submit questions through the webinar interface, we'll be watching those and have some time toward the end to answer them. So thank you. Go ahead, Jan, now with the 9th grade.
Well, I've already said that in 9th grade, students have to be ready to hit the ground running. And when I talk to 9th graders, our rising 9th graders, and that would be our 8th graders, I'll be talking with them later in the spring. But when I talk to them, I want them to understand that when you hit 9th grade, it all matters. And the big academic transition for 8th graders into 9th grade, and this is true whether you're in a small school like ours or if you're in a large school, this transition is a major hurdle from 8th into the high school. So the first thing is that there's more self-management. The student is, for example, here in the 9th grade, they're not going to receive agendas from the school. They are expected to be able to manage their assignments using an agenda, using perhaps some type of electronic device. That we expect them to be logging into RenWeb on regular basis, checking their assignments. So that is something that is a self-management, self-organization that they have to have. Most likely they will have more teachers, even though they have a number of teachers in the middle school. In the high school, there's a teacher for every academic discipline, a different teacher. So they have to learn different styles of teaching and different expectations. Teachers have higher expectations for critical thinking. They're not looking for students just to parrot back answers. And in fact, many of the tests across the disciplines are going to require written answers and explanations as to why does this work this way. Another thing, teachers are not going to track the students down. If assignments are missing, teachers are not going to say, well, by the way, you didn't turn in your homework at the last class. Teachers are not going to track the students down if they were absent and say, oh, these are the handouts you missed. So it does require initiative on the part of students to step forward to solve this problem, so to speak. If they were absent, they've got to take that initiative to follow up with their teachers. A big point as you move to high school is the transcript. I tell our students, you are writing in concrete when you are creating your transcript. It's not that teachers are giving you grades. The grades that you earn are the grades that show up on the transcript. So you're responsible for those grades. There's a huge myth that the only grades that are really important in high school are the 11th grade grades. That is not true. 9th grade grades, 10th, 11th, 12th, right up to the last semester of the senior year, all the grades are critically important. And I have found that colleges will call and ask about ninth grade grades. What we're expecting to see is an upward trend in the grades. You might have a difficult first semester, ninth grade, but we should see those grades going up as they proceed. Also, students are beginning to write their college recommendations. And I'm going to say more about this. We have another slide coming up later. But the point here is that teachers are observing students. And we don't mean this, there's nothing negative about this. It's just that teachers, as they work with students, are taking note of how the student approaches his or her schoolwork, if the student's handing in assignments on time, if the student's engaging with teachers and his or her peers. And I want to always remind our parents and our students that teachers write college recommendations not based on whether or not they like the student. We love our students, but as I'll show you later, they have to be honest about their observations of the student. And this observation begins in ninth grade.
All right, so we moved to 10th grade. My daughter, Hosanna, who's in ninth grade, and we were commenting how we've got a couple weeks left or a few weeks left in the school year, and she's going to be in 10th grade next year, not a rookie anymore. She said. Yeah, so, so you move past the rookie year into 10th grade.
Right, yes, and we've all heard of the sophomore slump.
Right.
So we don't want Hosanna or any of the 10th graders to have the sophomore slump. Well, and this is what's wonderful. By 10th grade, students are comfortable. They're comfortable with their teachers. They are pretty sure they're going to be able to navigate the high school experience. So it's really important for 10th graders not to get too comfortable and remember that every grade and every course counts. In 10th grade, we're really looking to see that growth in intellectual curiosity, the ability to express what they're interested in, what they want to learn. And of course, with that, there is a tension because, and this is true of all of us, there's some things we want to learn and some things we're just not that interested in learning. So we have to put in that extra effort. We have to go that extra step to actually be curious about a discipline that maybe doesn't intrigue us as much. Once again, we definitely expect to see 10th graders growing in independence, and this would be less dependent on their peers, their parents, particularly as regards, say, if they have what they might term an issue with a teacher. We expect the student to be able to approach the teacher and say, this is my concern. And our teachers are wonderfully, they want to hear from students. They want to work with students. So when a student approaches a teacher, that just opens up a door of a warm communication and an opportunity to help the student. Once again, exploring specific interests. There's another myth that colleges want to see that you have 20 activities. That's not true. And as I say, it's okay to say no. It's just not realistic. And we all know that you're not equally interested in 20 things as you might be in 2 or 3. So what colleges want to see is that you have interests beyond academics and that you pursue those interests in a passionate way. It doesn't have to be something within the school curriculum. It can be something you pursue in your church. It can be something that you can, a sport that you like, such as swimming. We don't have a swim team, but we do have students who participate in competitive swimming. 10th grade, this is a great time to visit colleges along the way. I call it just looking. And I always use the example of like driving down 95 South, stop in, you can see the University of Mary Washington. You can go east and see the College of William and Mary. You can see Old Dominion. You can see Hampton, a historically Black university. You can go west to Charlottesville to UVA, and then on to Blacksburg to Virginia Tech. But if you're just traveling down the road, take a few hours or maybe and pull off and visit any college that you might see as you're just traveling.
Right. All right. Well, we're finished 10th grade. We're halfway through.
Okay.
And now 11th grade, the rubber starts to hit the road a little bit more.
It does.
Getting closer to college.
It does, definitely. 11th grade is another step up in the academic rigor in a number of ways, particularly in the demand for critical thinking across the disciplines. And in our program, we see that particularly in the junior capstone and then later in the senior thesis. But in 11th grade is the time that a student should consider perhaps taking an AP course. And we'll have a word about AP courses in a minute, but are you an active or passive student? By 11th grade, you should expect to see an active student. This is a student who's asking questions. This is a student who's encouraging his or her peers to form a study group. I'm always excited when I look in Central Commons and I see a group of students huddled together, working together on coursework. It's especially exciting. I see students in the AP Calc class helping one another, explaining to one another. So that's an important way to be an active student. Definitely college visits is a part of the junior year. It should definitely be part of your spring and absolutely your summer plans. By the end of the summer of the junior year, we're expecting that you have 5 colleges that the student is saying, I'm going to apply to these 5 colleges. Also, during the summer of the junior year, this is the rising senior year, you should be preparing for the SAT or ACT, and you should be writing drafts of your college essays. And we have very specific directions and opportunities that we provide for our students.
Great.
Okay.
You mentioned AP classes,
right.
So let's share. Yeah. We get lots of questions, as I said before, about
Definitely.
that. Could you share a little bit about them, and as the slide
Sure.
says, what some of the benefits are?
Okay, great. Yes, and for those who don't understand, we use this term AP, we just throw it around like everybody knows, but AP stands for Advanced Placement, and these are college level courses that we offer in our high schools. Our curriculum and our teachers have to be approved by the College Board. In these courses, we use college level texts. So one of the benefits is that a high school student learns how to use a college level textbook. Many of our courses, it's not just the textbook, it's also the outside reading. So the course may have a text and then 2 or 3 other books that you have to read along with the text. Professors don't break assignments down into chunks. In our AP courses, we work with our students and we show them how to handle the text, how to handle the outside reading, and how to make it manageable. We teach strategies for making that work manageable. The big thing about AP courses at our school and any school is that students have to actually dig into that text. In a sense, they're going to have to teach themselves some parts of the course because AP teachers are not expected to cover every single topic in depth. They can't. There's not enough time for it. So students will have to have some units where they just dig in and figure it out. So that's a great challenge, and it's very typical of what happens in college courses. AP courses have practical benefits, and just a couple of them. One is you can earn college credit. So we teach these courses in our high schools, but in May, we give the AP exams in our high schools, They're scored by the College Board on a scale of 1 to 5, and it's up to the college whether or not the student will receive college credit for the course. And of course, the credit is based on the score. If you do get college credit, this means that the student might have a higher course level placement in college, and actually they may even go in with a higher academic standing overall. So we have had some students graduate who've gone into college and they've actually been sophomores or second-year college students based on their AP credits. So that's a huge advantage, of course. And they could graduate early, but they won't.
They want that typically stay for that last year.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Okay, so we've let's see, written essay. We're approaching senior year with
Right.
applications. As you mentioned here at WCA, students, and we have a meeting either late spring of the junior year or during the summer before the senior year, where parents and students meet with Jan, and they're supposed to bring those 5 colleges. So
Yes.
then the question that begs is, so how do you select a college? There are
Right.
500, maybe 5,000, I don't know,
Well,
colleges
yes.
out there, and
Yeah.
how do you narrow that down to 5?
Yeah. I am always amazed, at how many colleges and universities are in our country, and what an opportunity students have to attend a 4-year college. And there's such a variety, and we term this as what is the best fit. So what are the factors that make a college a best fit? First of all, even though we talk about best fit, when we say best fit, we're really talking about a range of colleges. It's not like there's only one school, one college or university that is a best fit for a student. Now, I know that there's some seniors who would beg to differ with me. They would say, I can only go to this one college, and I've had a few of those in my family. But the reality is there are a range of schools where a student will have an excellent experience and find it to be a best fit. The first factor I ask students and parents to consider is, to what extent is the student mature in critical thinking, biblical thinking, analysis skills? How confident and how skilled is the student in this area? So that's a factor, because for some students, if what they hear from a professor, they may not be able to critically analyze. They may just take the whole thing without picking it apart and searching for truth. What we do here is we teach our students how to search for truth in difficult literature, in history, whatever the discipline is before us. We have to pull it apart, search for truth, think critically. Another factor in the selection is how mature is the student in terms of fortitude, personal stamina and fortitude, able to say no matter what school you go to, whether you go to a Christian college or what we might call a secular college, someone's going to give you the opportunity to do something that you ought not to do. Can you say no? What about your social skills? Are you able to take that first step, take that initiative in making friends, or will you feel completely overwhelmed on a university campus with 10,000 students? And what about emotions? Are you easily troubled by what you see going on around you, or are you able to navigate a course through difficult times? I also encourage our families to remember the significance of a broad liberal arts education, typical of what you find in a rigorous academic program like ours. So the liberal arts education teaches you to think across disciplines, teaches you to problem solve by interacting among disciplines. Even if you end up in a very technical field, such as engineering, the reality is, and what good engineers realize, is that their work is a part of history. It takes place in time and space and history. So what is the role of that work in history?
I'm going to interject, Jan, as I
Okay.
was with my son Josiah, who is in 11th grade, and we actually did a college visit over spring
Yes,
break this past
good.
week, and he's interested in engineering, and so there was a little like focus group with some of the professors from the engineering department and the students and the parents that were visiting, and this kind of question came up, and it was interesting. The lead professor in the engineering department there specifically stressed, that liberal arts breadth, as what was, important, and I think actually I've been watching some of the questions. This goes to one of the questions from a parent that has a middle school student here, concerned about, even in high school level, going to a magnet program, like the ones they have in Montgomery County public high schools.
Yeah.
So that certainly, it was encouraging to hear, this college professor say that, that reading and writing and the critical thinking kinds of skills you get from a broader liberal arts education is a key element, in an engineering degree, or in the case of the question that we got, they're talking about med school.
Right.
So I think I've had enough interaction with doctors. I think I wish many of them would have had a broader, liberal arts base. So so we believe certainly as a high school that's important for us. Not to narrow, and we certainly have no evidence from our graduates that not having a magnet kind of program in high school is going to limit them in any of their future college pursuits. And again, the point of that Jan was bringing here, even at a college, level, that a broader education is going to be a benefit in a career, even technical, but lifelong. Any other kind of thoughts about that, Jan?
That's absolutely the liberal arts, the problem solving approach to the technical fields, and the understanding of the role that technical fields play in the larger society, and the ability to interact with all the disciplines is critical. From our graduates, we have had a number of graduates who are successful engineers. I met with one last summer who graduated from our school. She was a top engineering student at a very solid university. And this was the exact conversation that we had. She invited me out because she wanted me to know how she valued and had come to value even more her liberal arts training that started here. She was one who left us with enough AP credits to be a second-year student, and it opened up her program so that she could take more of the humanities courses along with her engineering courses. And she talked about the influence of that thought on how she works as an engineer.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay, another factor to think about is, can I be happy here for 4 years? When you're selecting a college, think about, where is the school located? Is it a city school? Some of the city universities, for example, George Washington University in DC, New York University in New York City. These are city schools. The city streets go straight through the university. You don't know, as you go up, I think it's 21st Street, you see all these buildings and you're not sure which ones belong to GW and which ones are just office buildings. Is that an environment, or is your family expecting a more discrete college campus, kind of looking like the picture we've got up here? Do you want a rural school? Do you want a suburban school? And when you go to visit a college, I always tell our parents, if you're if you don't like the way the neighborhood looks as you're driving to the school, or if there's something about that environment that displeases you or displeases your child, you don't have to get out of the car. You can just go on to the next college or whatever your plan is. I had that experience as a parent. I took my daughter, we were driving to a school, and as we were driving along, I could tell by the look on her face that she didn't like what she was seeing. And we got there and she said, I am not going to school here. It's too remote. We're city people. I want to be in a city. So that was the end of it. It's fine. There are so many great colleges, a range of best fits. I do get this question about, should I go to a community college first? Usually it's posed to me like, should I go to a community college? It'll be cheaper and I can just get the basics out of the way. First of all, I want to emphasize, and please hear me, community colleges have a marvelous place in our system of higher education. Community colleges provide a path to a 4-level college degree for people who are not prepared for college for various reasons. Community colleges, just like our public schools, which also have a vital role, take everybody. So necessarily it's a different education than what you're going to get in a degree granting 4-year institution, particularly an institution which also offers graduate degrees in a wide variety of disciplines. So when you're an undergraduate, you benefit from all of the university, the libraries, the labs, the resources available to students who want to play in the orchestra, even though they're math majors. You benefit from faculty with terminal degrees in the disciplines in which they teach. And I like the way I describe it as biology 101 benefits from biology 404. And you benefit from graduate students who interact with undergraduates as well as professors. But even more than these wonderful points, remember that this is a living learning experience. So undergraduate students benefit from each other. You have a pool of like-minded, competitive students. They're all moving toward that 4-year degree, the BA or the BS. And guess what? They're pulling others along with them. So someone in a suite says, I'm going to the library. And somebody else thinks, oh, I need to go to the library too. Or, for example, one of our students who came in, he graduated last year, came in to talk with me on his spring break. And I was asking him how he studied. And he said, well, my roommates and I, and then he began to describe how they study, how they study together, how they help each other, how they make a plan, how each other accountable. So that living learning environment cannot be underestimated. And I'm happy to take more questions on this, but we can go on. How can you learn about a potential college? Many ways. The best way is on-site visit, but you can go to any college website. They're on, usually it's the collegename.edu. You can also email professors. You can email, for example, if you're interested in chemical engineering, you might email a professor in that department. They are very responsive. I'm always surprised at how responsive professors are. You can email students, a student group. So for example, if you're interested in journalism, you might email the student newspaper. And likewise, these students are usually responsive. If you are aware of Christian groups on the campus, InterVarsity, Reform University Fellowship, you can interact with that leadership, and they will be glad to give you some feedback about the college. But nothing beats an on-site visit.
Great. All right.
Okay.
For those out there listening, thanks for staying with us. We've got about 3 or 4 more slides to go. A couple slides now on. So you found those 5 schools applying to colleges. Jan for the WCA community gives a 2-hour Saturday in October usually, or March, excuse me, that seminar on this. So we don't have 2 hours, on the details of applying to college. If you just hit, we have here a couple highlights of the things for families to be looking out to thinking about. So we got just a couple more slides on this, and then the SAT information at the end.
Okay. Well, the beginning of the senior year is a time where I tell our seniors, when I meet with the seniors and their parents, okay, we're making a plan. At our college plan meeting, that's what happens. We make their plan. When school starts, we work the plan. There will be some decisions that should be made before school starts. Are you applying early decision to a college? That's binding. Or are you applying early action? No matter what, everyone is going to do college applications in the fall, at least one by November. So some decisions are going to have to be made, and I can discuss details about that if anyone would like to get a flavor for what type of decisions those are. Your applications, the basis for the college admission decision, and the pieces of it include your basic demographics, the essay, which you're already working on before school starts as a senior, your transcript, and our teacher recommendations. I think we have a slide that we'll talk about that. But here's something that's very important for parents and students to grasp. Your email address, your Facebook posts, and tweets will influence admission decisions. And just a quick little story, I was at a meeting for college guidance people such as myself with a group of college admission officers from the most elite schools. And one of these admission officers talked about a student who was admitted to the university, and after being admitted, sent out a series of tweets, Facebook posts, comments that did not put himself in a flattering light. And these all of this came to the attention of the admission director. That student's offer of admission was withdrawn. So an offer had been made to an elite school which accepts fewer than 10% of the applicants, but based on tweets and Facebook posts, that offer was withdrawn.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, something important to look for.
Yes.
As we talk about recommendations, I know, one of the thoughts that families have is often that, in the whole admission office process, there's a formula, your SAT score gets plugged in, your grade point average gets plugged in, again, what, other courses you have, and there's some computer in the background that makes the admission decision. So something I've learned from you, Jan, over the years is significance, both of the essay, we've talked about that the students' opportunity to present themselves, but also teacher recommendations. Again, we focus on that, and so that's worth some comments for our families.
Right. Just a few comments to flesh out what I was saying earlier. Teachers write the recommendations not based on whether or not they like the student, but the teacher's role is to assess the student in the classroom and to assess the student in the terms of how the student has interacted with the teacher. So for example, on these are qualities that teachers are asked to rate students on, either comment or maybe check a box, but definitely these qualities. Let's go down to productive class discussion. A teacher will be very fond of a student, but if the student never raises his or her hand and participates in class discussion, the teacher can't say that the student is an asset in class discussion. Let's take on the other side, reaction to setbacks. A student may be brilliant, a student may be getting A's in the class, but if something happens, say for example, a student who is accustomed to getting A's gets a B and talks to the teacher about it and is unhappy with the teacher's response, and then stomps out of the classroom and pouts and is angry with the teacher for the rest of the quarter, the teacher can't say that this student handles setbacks well. So this is the way that the student writes his or her recommendation. I mentioned that students are observed by teachers starting in 9th grade. I am always just blown away as I review our teacher recommendations by the comments our teachers make. And first of all, our teachers are consistent in their assessment of students. We don't have teachers who are outliers in the sense that one teacher's way over here positively and another teacher's way over there negatively. We see teachers being very fair and very accurate in their assessments communally. Secondly, teachers are very careful to assess how a student has grown and changed since 9th grade. I'm just thinking about one of our teachers who wrote an excellent recommendation for a student who in 9th grade, we were all wondering, okay, are you gonna make it? And of course, the young man who graduated we're proud of. And the teacher talked about this growth in intellectual interests, this growth in writing, his growth in thought, and the way the student participated in class discussions, and the way the student demonstrated concern for others. So that student didn't realize that he was providing the fodder for his teacher recommendation, but he did, and he did it successfully. And that's what we want to see. We want to see that growth in our students.
Yeah, it's in many ways it's similar to the transcript that you build year by year
Right.
with your grades and your semesters
Right.
and your classes. But again, often students and parents don't think about that.
Right.
They get to senior year,
Right.
and want recommendations written and expect them to have some
Right.
of these qualities in them when that wasn't happening over the course of the year.
Exactly.
So that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got
Okay.
one more slide on
One more slide.
a couple quick things on the SAT. Jen.
Okay, great. What's the difference between the SAT and the ACT? In a nutshell, the SAT asks the student, what do you know and how do you think about what you know? The ACT asks the student, what do you know? So that the SAT is a reasoning test. It's a reading and mathematically critical thinking reasoning test, whereas the ACT is more of a content-based test. And so, for example, the ACT has discrete sections on science and social studies, reading, math, etc. When should I take the test? We recommend that you take the test in the fall of your senior year after preparing for these tests in the summer, definitely emphasizing that preparation in the summer when you're a rising senior. Quickly, what I mean about preparation is, number one, realize that our students are right now, while we're talking, our students are in class, they're preparing for the SAT or the ACT right now. The best preparation is the rigorous curriculum, which demands critical thinking of the student. The preparation that you do, your SAT, ACT prep, This is primarily test-taking skills, familiarizing you with the test and what the questions are asking. If you don't have a broad vocabulary, you're not going to increase your vocabulary by 1,000 words the summer before you're a senior. But during the summer is the time to focus on preparation, skills in taking the test, and just like it's the time to focus on writing drafts of your college essays. You don't have other homework. You have a more relaxed schedule, and we recommend that students take the test in the fall, hit it hard, and if necessary, go back in the November or December sitting. You don't take the SAT or the ACT to practice. There are many ways to practice these tests, but you don't take it to practice, and I'll be happy to answer more questions about that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jan.
Okay.
Hooray. You know, we
Here
made
are.
it.
We made
Both
it.
the end of senior year.
Yes.
This picture doesn't show the group of parents off, throwing, their hats up,
Right.
thankful that
Right.
that their children made it through graduation.
That's
We've got
for sure.
a couple minutes left and a couple questions. So we have
Okay.
one from a parent here at WCA earlier on when we were talking about, the 8th grade, like middle school, and the independence that that students are supposed to show, and then particularly getting into 9th grade and up into high school, how we
Right.
expect them to take ownership. Asked how we WCA, and maybe we could expand that, other schools could help students with that, and particularly electronically. We use a system called RenWeb. Schools
Right.
use lots of electronic systems to make sure. I'll throw a couple things in and then let
Okay.
you answer, Jan. The other thing I think that's important from the school's perspective is that each faculty member is clear in their expectations,
Yes.
so that there isn't confusion. So we talk
Right.
with our faculty about that it's not just the electronic. Obviously, during the
Right.
class time, they're talking about what assignments are coming up and the expectations, particularly associated with those. So, RenWeb is the product we use that has, when things are due, what the grade results are, and that. And the other thing I would say is certainly my experience with our kids and being here at the school is that it's not a cliff that drops off from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Right.
So we understand that
Right.
those beginning 9th graders are starting with that, and
Definitely.
we use the 9th through 12th grade time,
Right.
to build, encourage and see them grow in that independence and kind of all of those 5 I's way back
Right.
way back where you started. Any other thoughts on that question?
Definitely that it's not a cliff, and we really know that our students are on a spectrum. And one thing I very much appreciate about our faculty is, along with teaching the content, we are teaching skills, and we are giving our students strategies for appropriate independence at their level. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't expect the kind of independence of a 10th grader or 11th grader to be in a 6th grader. So we're giving them age and grade level strategies for independence. So for example, with a 10th grader or 11th grader, we say, now you've got your course syllabus, you've got all your major assignments for the semester. You should be able to set a calendar. You've got your A and B days, when those are. Set a calendar, consider your sports activity, and set a calendar that you stick with in that will enable you to work to get your assignments completed on time. And you've got to have a level of independence to do that. You can't be waiting on mom and dad to check with you every day. Are you doing your homework? Are you doing your homework? That gives the student a strategy for owning his or her homework.
Okay, Great. Thank you, Jan. Another question. One of the participants says their son has expressed an interest in law and business. What classes should he be looking at to take now? So let's assume that's high school.
Okay. A student who would be have those interests would, first of all, should be very interested in the AP US Government and Politics course. That's a college level course, and of course it does delve into economics, it delves into law, how laws are created, all of that. So that would be a course that would be very challenging and would give that student a taste of whether he would like that field, though of course at this age you're not making any commitments. Definitely the history courses, definitely the literature courses, because all of these themes are discussed, particularly in the 10th and 11th grade humanities literature courses, because it works in with the history.
Great. All right. Thank you. We've got another question commenting that the focus has been on this webinar for middle and middle school and above. My kids are in 3rd and 4th grade. Are there things they can do to plan ahead? So here's someone. Yeah. So the first thing is start saving money. Right. but yes. for their students, 3rd and 4th graders, or just lower school in general, as they're thinking about college.
I think for the lower school students, I have noticed, and I experienced this with my personal children, but the love for reading, the excitement of learning, that at that age, when they catch that and they begin to read beyond what's assigned for them to read, and in the lower school, even in 5th grade, the interaction of reading and talking together, parent and child. So you may have something that you share reading, where you read a chapter and talk about it with your child reads a chapter, and then you talk about it. You begin to build that critical reasoning skill. You're asking questions, and you're doing this not because it's homework, but because it's fun. And I can tell you that when it's certainly in the high school, when that habit of reading and talking with a parent, it builds the confidence to discuss ideas, the confidence to ask questions of other adults, and it builds the logical reasoning thinking skills. And it's very apparent to teachers, to us, when a student has had that experience, because those are students who they can't help but contribute to the class discussion, because they've had such a broad habit and exposure to reading. And you might read something to even a 4th grader or your 3rd grader or 2nd grader that's a little bit above their level, and then that's a source for dialogue between you, and your child just thinks it's wonderful fun. Right. And your child builds confidence in you as the parent. So great.
And I referred to it earlier. That last question we'll talk about is this back to the liberal arts kind of education and magnet program we have. In the questions and answers section, you'll see an article or a link to an article that was published about the value of that liberal arts education. In fact, one of our high school history department chair gave a presentation to our faculty a couple weeks ago on this specific thing, what we're trying to accomplish. So I guess as this is preparing for college, I mean, we understand it, but in your discussions with admission offices over the years, Jan, and the kinds of things they're looking for in a transcript, could you just kind of close with comments on if they got a student from a magnet school in science and engineering, or pick any of them versus a broader education, what are they going to think about that?
admission officers will tell you that they are looking for students who, particularly at the high school level, demonstrate a balance of courses on their curriculum, because these admission officers know that students who, let's just say their transcript is filled with the math science courses, they know that these students, in our view of who an educated person is, there has to be a balance of coursework. And we are not, the overall sense is in our society, we're not looking to raise just technocrats who are, they can wire it, they can punch the numbers, they've got their heads down. We're living in a global society, and they're looking for people who are able to be global citizens, who are able to work with others and have demonstrated that ability. This is why we have students doing group work in middle school and in high school. This is why it's important for our students to learn to interact with others and to work with others. That is a skill. So the idea of I'm on this track at 16 and this is the only track for me it's a bit of a stretch.
Right. Great. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Jan. I saw that. I think the same kind of thing in my oldest son, Jonathan, who graduated from WCA and went to the University of Maryland, ended up with a bachelor's of arts in economics, but also graduated with the minor in philosophy.
Right.
So, is he going to go off and use the philosophy in a job sometime? Maybe not. But is he using, the thinking and the interest? Is that a part of who he is in his life? That's there every day. So, so I certainly have seen the benefit of that. Well, thank you all so much for staying with us an hour plus, and we sure appreciate it. Again, please feel free to contact the school. WashingtonChristian.org is our website, or you can call. And again, our phone number's there. We'd love to have any follow-up answers to you, and wish you all a blessed afternoon. Thank you. Goodbye.